Let's now take a look at some of the latest perspectives as we address the key players in handling the ongoing North Korea nuclear standoff. US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, first of all, actually seems to be quite optimistic. At a cabinet meeting led by President Donald Trump, Pompeo was asked to provide an update on the North. So we're now many months with no additional missile tests, he said. Many months with no additional nuclear testing from the North Koreans. He also pointed out the return of American war remains as a positive, and then he claimed to be continuing to make progress and hoping that we can make a big step here before too long. Big step. Doesn't seem that likely in the near future, especially as we've seen Pompeo already make 3 trips to Pyongyang and a 4th one is apparently looming. But if he wasn't able to set any sort of timeline in place last month, what makes him feel like he can do it this time around? We'll return to reasons for potential pessimism there in a moment, but first, actually a cause to be fairly positive on the inter-Korean front. Full military communication was established this week to the east and west sides of the border, and family reunions are still scheduled for next week. These are important parts that fulfill this year's inter-Korean agreement. The big ask right now is political cooperation. President Jae-in wants parliamentary backing to help ensure smooth inter-Korean ties. He called yesterday for bipartisan efforts to improve relations with the North, urging the 5 major parties to ratify that April 27th Panmunjom Declaration before the Pyongyang summit. But that too is a big ask right now. You only have to pick up the local editorials to realize the political divide that exists. The conservatives very much siding with a US perspective, let's say, calling for North Korean denuclearization before we see that North Korean prosperity or at least an offer of economic cooperation. The liberal side taking far more the government's perspective that the US should take corresponding measures in addition to what the North does. And another major issue is still North Korea's perspective. One of Pyongyang's main media outlets demanded today that the United States agree to declare the end of the Korean War. We've heard that one before, but here's what the Norodong Shinmun newspaper had to say. There is no reason to ignore a declaration to end the war. It is a preliminary and essential process to pave the ground for détente and a permanent peace on the Korean peninsula. We see through these media commentaries that Pyongyang state-run media keeps using this phrase simultaneous measures, a phased approach, something that's completely at odds with Washington's insistence on verifiable denuclearization before we make that kind of progress. But during a visit to the construction of a coastal tourist site, Chairman Kim Jong-un took the opportunity to again denounce Washington's stance on sanctions. He spoke of hostile forces trying to stifle the Korean people through brigandish sanctions and blockade, and even a do-or-die struggle. So is Mike Pompeo fooling himself and President Trump when he speaks of a big step, or are they perhaps even ready to compromise? Then again, here in Seoul, will we see President Moon Jae-in get enough political support to back his plans for inter-Korean ties? And finally, is there enough trust among any of these parties to bring about the simultaneous measures hoped for by the North?